Yes. Okay. I will start sharing with you the chapter where we stopped last time, chapter 5, characterization. Can you see my screen now?
No, we can't.
Yeah, and my voice a little bit about the definitely the style or the art of individualizing each and every character certain qualities or attributes which will make him or them or her distinguishable from one another or the rest. Now, this, if you like, may seem simple, but I'm seeing really complex operation because you have to employ other elements and other means of characterization, which means to make a certain character really a different individual and so on. So I'm saying,
Doctor,
here, even in characterization, as you know, all these elements of fiction are really interconnected.
Doctor.
Hello?
I am talking. Doctor, are you sharing a screen? We
Yes.
can't see anything. And also your
Well, it's
voice
not
is not clear.
Yeah, I lost the connection. Wait a minute. I lost connection, and now I don't. Yes, I think now I'm back. I don't know, I'm losing connection most of the time. I don't know what's wrong. It seems that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know what's going on really now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, doctor.
Why am you? Yeah. I don't know. I have 29 people here. Who are these people? Anyway, I will check
Where are
that
your
later.
students, doctor?
Sorry? Well, my students are only 27. How come I have more people? No. Anyway, no problem. I will check that again. Okay, I'll start sharing again. I hope it works again. Yeah. Can you see the screen again?
No, not doctor. No.
Hello?
Now yes.
Now.
Yeah? Yeah, good.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I was talking about, how this act of developing or, creating characters. And as I was saying, really, there's no way we can completely cut, lines between these elements of fiction, plot, character, theme, etc. These are all, if you like, interrelated and interconnected in a strong fashion. So that's why here I start with the first section. I say the first, we give a character a name. The second step is we have to, see what kind of, thing about him or her. And that's why I'm saying the writer about that character and so on. So about this character, this level of in the levels of formula, imagining what kind of person we have here, what kind of character we have here. When we say, for example, the family name, the first name, the society, the background, education, blah, blah, rich, poor, etc. City, village, and so on. So we get all these levels of, if you like, information, I think, which will help us understand. And that's what I say here, all these social background, the past and the present occupation, the description of his relation to other characters, and so on. So all these things will characterize, will individualize a character for us, at least, for the time being in our mind when we first see the character. So I would say here, the more information we get about a character, the higher we go up into its level of characterization. That means, the main thing here, we get the amount of information we get, and at the same time, there's no need really to say, I want to know everything, every details. Now, you can't have that because these things will come later. And again, we don't need to, give a lot of details about secondary characters, because we don't need this, because they are secondary characters. And that's why, again, the focus will be only on main characters. And that's why here we see this, really, in a way, it's difficult, again, to see exactly, again, the borderlines between what is main and what is secondary, till later on when you are towards the end or the middle of the novel, for example, you would say, well, this is a main character and this is a second character. Again, here I'm saying, since the main characters or the heroes or protagonists of the story perform most of the action, then they are given greater attention than the secondary ones, and therefore they are far more difficult to characterize. Yes, I think this is true because, you know, when you hero or heroes, you know, here protagonists, you know, because you have to give a lot of character better, unlike the secondary one, because in the secondary characters you don't receive much information about them, so you don't need to worry about that. So here we again we differentiate between, as you can see, changing character or static character. Means a character which will be the same from the beginning till the end. A character which will never change, you know. And this is what we call static, means, you know, fixed. Whereas changing or developing, meaning it will change automatically from and gradually turn to something else. They dynamically, whereas static characters are, they are fixed. So I say they enter and leave the story displaying a single attitude.
We can't hear you.
Repeating, I hate this. Okay, I don't know what's happening today with the net. Well, not really the net. I mean, I have strong signal of the internet, but the network is falling all the time. I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, Victor, for now we can hear it.
Yeah. Why am I losing connection all the time?
Doctor, why don't you record the lecture?
Yeah, doctor, I
Is it
agree.
that? Yeah?
We can't hear
Because
it.
Yes,
we
doctor,
can't
it
hear.
lags too much. It wastes too much time.
I'm recording it.
Okay.
I'm
Then are we obliged
recording
to
it,
attend
but
these classes?
if I don't have connection, I don't know. Yes, you have to attend class because I'm taking attendance, and the university you must attend. Yes. Anyway, I will go back and share with you the text, and I hope that it'll be okay.
Doctor, what about change the time of the lecture?
No, you will always have people who say no. Somebody will say no, I'm not busy, I'm not free or whatever. Anyway, I do hope it'll be, I'm sure it's not going to be like this all the time, but we'll see, our luck. So yes, do you see my screen back again? I'm saying here, static characters are not necessarily less important or minor characters in the story, less important or minor characters. They can also be heroes of the best stories and novels. So when I say static or fixed, it doesn't mean they are unimportant. They are fixed because they don't change. And we have great names and great heroes and heroines in English literature and everywhere really, where we have static for selection of stories that we have. For example, Ivan Dimitrich in Chekhov's The Lottery Ticket, and even the husband in Maupassant's The Necklace. All these people, even the American wife, in a way, I think she's funny. I see her as static. In the same way, so these stories contain a lot of round and developing characters. I'm not saying that, I'm saying English novels, or not just English, any novel. We always have this, what we call static or fixed, and developing or changing. And the question of being static, again, I repeat, doesn't mean that these characters are not important. And I gave you examples of that. And the same thing, the same thing here I say about this. We say a round character is one, we said round is the developing, changing. Means like this, you can see it from different sides and different angles and different perspectives. This is what we call, round character. So that's why I'm saying here, the same difference is equally true between what's called round character or round characters and flat characters. These share most of the qualities of developing and static characters, but not, saying here, are not interchangeable with them. I think they are in a way, sometimes. So a round character is one which we see from different angles, from various angles. We look at it through a circular sort of perspective. We see it from different lights and different conditions and different attitudes and so on. Whereas a flat character is like fixed, which is the same, is one, which displays only a single attitude, single way, single quality, single, if you like, idea and one aspect of society. This is what we call, a flat, means absolutely the same. This is how we look at it, as a flat like that, whereas round like that, like a ball here. And here again, I give more example. I say, for example, Mr. Loisel, the husband in Maupassant's The Necklace, like the husband in Hemingway's Cat in the Rain, and the husband and wife in Chekhov, The Lottery Ticket, are all flat characters, means they don't change. They always remain the same. And I think this is quite interesting here. We have to see this, as an example of what we call round or flat or developing or changing or fixed or static and so on. And again, we have one final thing. We said it's the same thing. We have two ways of representing characters. Again, we said expository presentation, like in the introduction, straightforward description of the character, or we can have dramatic presentation. So expository means you listen to the narrator telling you details about this character, about its nature and about its values and so on. So here we say we are told by the writer or the narrator what the character is. Whereas the dramatic, we see the character herself or himself doing all this, and we learn all these things from the character directly. And I think this is, the main idea here. We always find this. Notice it's done through the situation in which a character is placed through juxtaposition and contrast with other characters, through conversation and dialogue and so on. So in other words, we said in expository we are told, whereas in dramatic we see, we are shown. And this is really the difference here. We say we are shown that the character is like by the ways in which he or she behaves without much, if you like, interference by the author. And I think this is the idea here I want to say about the situation we observe. Again, as I say, is, we look not only in the action, but also in the act of moral deliberation. And of course, the moral deliberation is the act of examination, means how you understand the morality, the deep down, the inner side of this character. And this is what we say moral deliberation, means what's really, if you like, the inner side of a character. I'm saying here is really implies the highest point of characterization. That is, when we know a character, its experiences, its background, religion, past, present, and future, and so on and so on, which means really we go deep and deep into their own selves, and we know you really go. Any question about characterization?
No, doctor. Yes. No, doctor.
You are fine, okay? Well, let me see. Maybe
Yes,
people are. Sorry? Yeah, everybody is here, but maybe they are asleep. I don't know. But anyway, I will start a new The new section here is called setting, and I will start sharing back with you. Now, really, setting is simple, very simple. Setting, as you can see here, very simply, is the time and place of a story. Very simple. The time and place of a story. Like in a play, like in drama. So we look at the place where the action happened. And when, really, this is the idea, where and when. Okay? So it is where and when the events are supposed to be taking place. In drama, we can quickly tell by the style of furniture, the costumes worn by actors, the language they use, what country and which period the play represents. In other words, in drama, we have what we call the scene. The scene of the action is already, you can see it from on the stage. Everything is set on stage and you can see that. But in fiction, you don't see it on stage. You read about it. You are told about it. And this is the idea I'm saying. The visual scene or the setting is not available in that quick way. In fiction, we have direct description and or we have dialogue. Again, and I think this is the idea. Instead of watching a play, you listen and read about the events, or about, if you like, the time and title and place and so on of the action. So here we are saying about in fiction. So we say setting. Setting here is the context or the background or the locale or the surrounding where the character really exists, or where characters exist, and their actions develop. You say somebody right when in now. So really useful and helpful, the background determined by their own surroundings and
Doctor, can't
of
hear
course
you.
society. Yeah, because we are made by society. Hello?
She said that we can't hear you.
Yeah? Well, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's
Yes.
better.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay? Okay?
When you ask us if we hear you, we hear you. But when you explain, we can't hear you.
حسبي الله لا إله إلا الله. I don't know what's going on today.
Doctor, as robot voices.
Really,
Yeah.
it's a funny business here. Well,
لا حول ولا قوة.
Yeah, all the time. Please. Yes. لا إله إلا الله. مشكلونهم وقوانينهم. Yes. Somebody's writing comments and yeah, interesting comments. Well, yes, مشكلونا. Wallahi, I agree with you. But anyway, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Wallahi, it's funny. I'm sorry, but you know.
Not well, doctor.
Okay. Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm saying really here again, I'm sharing. Can you see the screen again? I say setting is important in fiction because characters are greatly and directly determined by their surroundings and society. Yes, we are made by our society. We are controlled by society. We are largely formulated by our society. And that's why here we say this, that the surroundings, really the surroundings and societies, you know, all these elements are really important to make a character. So we say his thoughts are made up of the dictates and outside reality, of the language he speaks, of the culture he lives in, and of the social context he finds himself in, and so on. So man is the direct product of his conditions and circumstances and of his whole background. Really, this is true here, what I'm saying. So that's why we say really setting is very important to understand a certain theme or idea or behavior or certain person. You accept them when you know that they come from a certain area, for example. The way somebody is doing something, you say, well, this is what we do back home, or this is what we do in our country, and so on. So the question here of surrounding and society is quite interesting and important. And that's why I'm saying setting is the prime mover of action. As you can see, prime mover of action because it influences characters, their attitudes and their behavior, and governs the greater part of their relations. Through setting, the probability of character and the plausibility of action are measured. For example, when you understand the place, the time, the place, and so on, you will understand how this character, for example, is possible, how this action is possible or is probable, that is, it can happen, is realistic, is acceptable, and so on. So this is the question here of probability and acceptability and plausibility, and all this really is related in many ways to the time and place. You know, we say this is something we do in our time. Now we don't do it anymore. In your time, you know, it was like this and so on. So here I'm saying that the time, or I'm saying really time and place, really decide, control, if you like, both time and place, control the way sometimes characters are seen or they behave. A story, for example, like A Rose for Emily, as we shall see, will be acceptable as an interpretation or as maybe interesting case of the Gothic setting with its horror story and terrifying in the supernatural moods, and will explain its horrifying symbolism. You know, sometimes and most of the times, you understand and you accept a text when you know where it is made and when it was made and to whom it was made, and so on. Really, this is the idea about that. And finally, in setting here, I say, setting then helps create the atmosphere or the general tone and mood of the story. As we shall see later, atmosphere is already related to the prevalent mood that permeates the story or the novel, which suggests how it's written by the author, or and also how to be read, if you like, by the reader or by readers. For example, I say a background of poverty and general hardship introduces a mood of suffering and misery, whereas a background of prosperity and social affluence inevitably leads to an atmosphere of joy and happiness, and for the writer really and reader alike, and so on. So such background, I'm saying, of poverty or hardships or whatever, suffering, misery, blah, 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 all these things are really related to what we're talking here about setting. And I say it's very nicely, or really is very nicely, if you like, portrayed, as we shall see in the stories we have here in our collection, especially in the necklace and the lottery ticket. We shall see this question, the place and time, and we see how this is really being very influential and very effectual. Well, this is, as you can see, a brief idea about setting. Do you have a question? Hello?
No, we don't have.
No, doctor. Thank you.
Yeah. You still hear me? My voice clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully, yes. Now, the next one is called point of view. Point of view really is something maybe a little bit different from what you see. When you say point of view, means how or where to view something. From which direction do you see something? And that's what we say point of view. From my side, from your side, from their side, you know, this is what we say point of view. But in narration, really, point of view is how we readers see the novel, how we see the story. How do we see it? We see it through a character's eye, or the writer's eye, or someone else's eye, and so on. So really, this is what we mean by point of view. Means how the action is shown to the reader. That's what we call point of view. How we readers see the story. Do we see it through a character? Do we see it through an old woman? Do we see it through a young man? Do we see it through many people together? And so on. So this is how our opinion as readers is affected by the way this event or these events or this story is given to me as reader. And really, that's all here very briefly, what I mean by point of view. So notice here, I say the phrase point of view is, or in itself means how someone views or sees something, or what he thinks of it, or even his opinion about it. Sometimes you say, well, I don't believe that. My point of view, this is wrong, means the way I see it, it's wrong, you know? And of course, in fiction, this is, I say, is something else. I say slightly different. Point of view in fiction does not only mean the way we look at the events in fiction, but also how the author decides to present them to us. This is it. So it's not only the way we see them, but also how the writer wants us to see them. So here we are, if you like, manipulated twice by the author and by the narrator, if you like, how to see the action and to express, our opinions and feelings and as you say, views of that. So I'm saying here also how the author decides to present them to us. In other words, point of view means that vantage point through which we see the story. Like standing on a pyramid and you are looking down on everyone. You can see everything from the top of the pyramid. Like standing on the top of the tree, when you look down and you see everything down. This is really the idea I'm saying, very simple. So that's what we mean by vantage point, means a point on maybe high ground through which you can see things. The vantage point through which we see the story, the direction into which we look at the events and characters. And I say this is self-evident since every tale is told or written by an author, yes, because we say, yeah, I mean, this is written by somebody, isn't it? By human beings, and that somebody is giving, his own feelings and his own attitudes, etc. And that's what I'm saying here, that this vantage point is something high, and you look down on people to see what they are doing in of course, in slightly different way than what we are seeing now. So in fiction, the author is referred to as the narrator, and he is usually given a separate, distinct identity. And this chapter here deals with this main question of narrator and the stories are told. Now, what I'm saying really here is, because in fiction we see the text maybe through the narrators and of course, I'm saying here the author's eye. So that's why here we don't like to say author, because the author could be absolutely opposite of his character. So this doesn't mean that the author is the same as the character. So here we use the term narrator, arawi. And I say he's usually given a separate, distinct identity. And this chapter here deals with this main question of the narrator and the various positions or views from, if you like, or again, I say, which means, or which stories are really told. The idea I'm saying here, very simply, is the question of how the narrator decides to show us the action, whether he should speak to us directly or should he borrow somebody else, as I said, just for fun and really to annoy us, maybe. Okay? Right. I think this is really very interesting. If you look at the next section, you see the same thing in fiction or in point of view. We say in fiction or writers, they never tell you, they never really admit that they are telling you a story. They always pretend that they are telling you the truth. I think I'm getting a bit. Let me put off this. Okay, so are you still with me? I hope so. Yeah, I think you are. So here I'm saying writers never admit that they tell the story themselves. They usually resort to an assumed personality or called persona, which is an assumed I and mind. In other words, really, the writer always, he pretends, actually, to be honest with you. Writers pretend that they are not the same people who wrote the novel or the short story. But of course, we don't believe them because they are the one who wrote it. So I'm saying here, the real writer himself remains hidden behind the world of his story to remain free, if you like, to remain or to retain his freedom and action, and to keep his heroes or choices, open, and to facilitate a constant shifting of positions as he likes. So the idea, really, the writer always uses a different persona to tell the story because he wants to move around and do things which are sometimes really, as I said, strange to follow and to understand in many ways. That's why here again the word persona, again, it's like a creation or an actor creation who does this in a very, if you like, strange way. So again, I say he does this in order to be in complete control of his material all the time. After all, he's the one who creates everything in his fiction. That's what I said to you. Authors always pretend that, that this narrator, I use this narrator because he doesn't look like me. So that's why, they use this, because sometimes, as you know, in fiction, always we have narrators. Unlike in maybe poetry, we have some narrators, but not in the same way, or like the other styles, of course, in literature, really. The question here, really, if you like, the narrator is always hidden, is always wanting to share what the author really is concerned about. And I think this is the idea here we have in this section here. Notice that's why the writer drops a distant position from the events or commissions someone else, the narrator, to perform for him his important task of fiction. Important task of telling the story in so many different ways. Now, this means that the author dictates on the narrator what to say, for narrators do not exist without their fathers, the authors. Again, as I said, this is really the idea that authors pretend that they are doing this, but as I said, pretend, because we know that they are the real authors of their texts. Thus, it's through the narrator what to say, for narrators do not exist without their fathers. Again, it's through the narrator's eye and maybe mind that we observe the characters and all the action or all the events of the story. So really here, the idea how we, if you like, define exactly the question of point of view, we say the position or the vantage point from which the narrator allows his readers to see it or to see the action. So this is the idea. Point of view is the vantage point from which, or the position or the vantage point from which the narrator shows us, the action or the whole story. And as I said, this idea is linked to what we call first-person narrator, third-person narrator, and second-person narrator. And as you can see, first-person narrator, like using the I, can be either first-person observer or first-person participant, meaning the first-person narrators are often divided into omniscient, second, or limited omniscient, or limited omniscience. And of course, you know, in many ways, we see different perspectives or different points of views or different narrators here doing different stuff, as we shall see. So the first person narrator, also the third person narrators are also, again, or often divided into internal, divided into omniscient or limited omniscient. Moreover, again, we say objective narrator and maybe subjective. Again, you know, this is quite interesting to see all these differences really done here. Now, something here. You know, giving a lecture in the afternoon is terrible. You agree?
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
especially if you have your lunch, you feel drowsy and you feel sleepy and then so on, isn't it? Yeah. Well, to go back, really here, I'm trying to, you know, differentiate between these different forms of narrators. As I said, we have first person and third person. Very rarely we have, I mean, we don't really have, very, very rarely we have second person. Like when you say you know, this mode of narration is very strange. So that's why we call this first person narrator or third person narrator. Again, the first person narrator and third person narrator also are divided. So again, to repeat, first person narrator, or using the word I, here we call first person observer, means who watches the action, or it could be first person participant, meaning a character. So it could be observer, observer character or observer narrator, or could be participant, means a character and narrator, you know. And we have seen, we shall see many examples of that. Again, third person narrators are, again, we say omniscient, limited omniscient, meaning they know everything, or you say omniscient or omniscient, or limited omniscient or omniscient. Really means they know everything, or sometimes you say, I don't know everything. You know, this is what it means by limited. Because the word omniscient means who is present everywhere all the time at the same time. Whereas limited omniscient means only from a certain perspective, from a certain angle. Again, we have what we call objective narrator. Sometimes we say objective. Really, objective can be first person or third person. Objective, someone who doesn't change or doesn't add or doesn't alter things. Whereas, again, notice here, objective narrator belongs to both categories, the first person observer and third person narrator. In other words, many critics say that the objective narrator is the third type of third person narrators. Well, could be. So very quickly here I say the first person narrator can be a character in the story and can tell us everything he chooses about the story and the characters. And this is, I think we've seen this all the time when we read the story, when we say, when the narrator is saying he, she, they, you know, This means a third person narrator, you know, to talk about in the mode of absence. He voice cannot be a character in the story. He stands at a distance from it and observes what goes on in the mind or the world created by the writer. He stands at a vantage point, can enter the world and leave it at will. You know, this is again, I think, quite interesting to see the difference between those things. Now, again, we say the omniscient narrator. I said the third person omniscient narrator means the narrator who knows everything about the world. Omniscient, also omnipresent, as I said, it's like a god, if you like. If you can believe that, someone who knows everything, someone who tells you everything about everybody, about everywhere at the same time. And that's why you say omni, you know, means to be present everywhere at the same time. He can be everywhere all the times at the same time and all the time, you know. And this is, you know, this is in reality, this is impossible. You know, how can I be in Muscat and tell you what's going on in Damascus at the same time? But a narrator can. How can I be in London and in Paris and in New York at the same time? But a narrator can. You know, this is the idea. You know, the idea about the question of omnipresent, meaning to be there all the time. Again, we call this, sometimes narrator can also be called editorial omniscient and cannot fully be trusted since he can say anything he likes about the story and its people. Yeah, that's why we say editorial means he chooses. He chooses to tell us what he chooses. It's up to him or her to tell us readers what he wants. So he can hide things from us, yes. And really, this is really the idea here, you know, in any way. Again, we go back to the question of third person narrator does not make such comments and so often limits himself to recording what he sees externally in the minds of all his characters. He's called neutral omniscient. Again, here we say neutral or limited omniscient or selected omniscient. Again, you know, all these things really can be useful for us later on to understand this. Again, as I said, in the third type of narration, I say the objective narrator. Very, yeah, we have sometimes objective narration, but they are really, in a way, quite rarely, you know, are there. He's the one who does not comment, does not judge, does not say, does not make, you know, changes, or abstains from editorializing and from entering the minds of his characters. You know, he limits himself to recording and writing what he sees and hears only. As I said, really, this objective narration is quite rare because narrators are always telling us what they think. And that's why really here I say, an objective narrator can be either a third person narrator or a third person narrator or a first person narrator. And in both, really in both cases, he tells the story like a historian, recording history without interfering in its events. As I said, really, you know, this way of narration is not, I mean, I should say it's not really much there. And that's why we call this what we call detached, you know, detached sort of point of view, or very objective in this sense. So like when I say here, objective narration is like a roaming camera recording scenes and people silently or without judgment. Again, such a narrative mode requires intelligence, and that, again, we say assimilates the situation and it relays it to the reader. But this, again, if this narrator is a child or a naive man, this point of view would then be described as an innocent eye. Well, in fiction, really, there are no innocent eyes. No innocent eyes or I here. When you say, I saw this, I heard this, I, you know, did this, and so on. you know, the question here I'm saying is this about the impossibility, really, of having this absolute objective way or innocent way. And I think I said this to you maybe before, because there are no sacred, no innocent, no faithful, innocent, you know, literary text. Maybe there are faithful, innocent, you know, holy texts, maybe, but not really in fiction. Again, here I say this leads to the what we call an innocent eye, of the fourth type of narration, that is the first person participant narrator. And we have so many examples in fiction, meaning a first person narrator and participant. Like, for example, when if we shall see in the lottery, in the lottery ticket, or no, in the lottery ticket, we have third person narration. We have in A Rose for Emily, we have, you know, in fact, a funny narrator, really, using the plural sense, the plural voice, not just he's saying I, he says we, you know, and this first person narration or first person participant narrator, what we call here really not innocent or uninnocent, means interfering, means they make a lot of comments, they decide, you know, and you know, it goes on like that. He's both narrator and character in the story that takes place, or they takes part in the action, and also speaks, or if you like, takes sides about other characters. And I think this is very, very clear. And I mentioned again the first person participant narrator, the same thing, I mentioned that before to you. The first person participant narrator and the participant narrator, if you like, you know, to describe other things using his own first voice. In conclusion, I say we should emphasize again the advantages of using third person. In contrast with the I person, the third person provides exactly the kind of full view of character and action defined or denied to the first person narrator. And, you know, I think this is the whole thing about narration, and I want to say that here for you today. So that's why I will stop here, and I'll continue from there next time. And if you really have any question, you are welcome to ask any question. Otherwise, I think that's the end of the day for today.